To start this project, you'll need some empty, used cans. The first thing we're going to do is remove the labels from the cans. Most of the time, this is a pretty easy process. Now that we have the water and ice inside of them, we're going to go ahead and place them into the freezer until they're frozen solid. Okay, here's a quick look at them frozen, and now we're ready for the next step. Now I've placed a protective towel just down to cover my surface, and I'm going to be using gloves because they're awful cold to hold. So I'm going to place the first can sideways onto the mat, and next we're going to pick a design. Now there's a few ways to do this. You'll want to clean a little bit of frost off your can so you can see it. That happens once you pull it out of the freezer. And then I like to use a dry erase marker, and then you can just start tapping what you want your design to be around. And I like to work in the indents. So the first thing I have here is a punch and a hammer. You could also use a nail, but you're just going to basically give it a little tap to create an indent in each spot that you made a mark. Now it can get a little tricky because it likes to slide, so if you want to use a rubber mat or something like that to kind of help hold things in place, you can definitely do that. Now that I have the little indents in each of these, we're ready for the next step. Now remember, if you want, you can just use a nail and punch all the way through and skip this next part. So for this next step, I'll be using a drill, and I've used a small drill bit that will fit into each of these little indents. Now I just place the drill into the can, and I will continue doing this to all of the holes, drilling in. And again, like I said, if you don't want to use a drill, you can use a nail and it will do the same thing. So all of the holes are now drilled out, but don't forget to put something on the side of each can to make a handle. You could just set these as luminaries if you want, but if you want to hang them, you'll want to drill a hole on the side. Now the cans are empty, the ice is out. And take them outside and spray paint them, and I'm going to use Rust-Oleum Gold spray paint. And the other one I'm going to use is the copper spray paint. Now that they're all painted, we're going to go ahead and let them dry. Now that the paint's dry, I'm going to focus on the center part of the heart. I'm going to be using Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster. So focusing on the center of the heart, I'm going to go ahead and take my paintbrush and start painting inside the heart. And this might take a couple coats, but I'm just going to go around with the paint. I'll get the first coat on, let it dry according to the package instructions, and then I will go ahead and paint a second coat if it needs it. I'll be doing this to both projects. Now that they're dry, it's time to put on a handle, and I'm going to be using some jute or twine cord. I'd rather go extra long, so I'm going to go ahead and cut a first piece off, and then I'm going to match it with a second piece, like so. Then I'm going to place a knot on one end and get it good in there, and then a knot on the other one, like so. I'm going to cut off the excess. Now I'm going to carefully take one end and thread it through one of those side holes till the knot is on the end. Then I'm going to loop it around, stick it into the other hole, and then I'm going to pull it till I get it about the length I want. And then I'm going to pull it up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead, place a knot in it, tighten it up, cut off the excess, and then pull it back out. So I have these little hooks on my front porch, and I'm going to be hanging them on there to light up our porch. I hope this inspires you to make some can lanterns of your own. Again, I'm Chas from Chas's Crazy Creations. Thanks for watching Hometalk, and I'll see you next time.
I have this window in my studio office and I decided it needed some fresh curtains. I picked up this one-step tie-dye kit from my local Walmart. It had some really cool ombre pastel colors that I wanted to try. And since I only need the powder for this DIY, I'm going to save the rest of the kit for something else. So I rigged up this setup here with just 2 ladders and a piece of wood, and then I laid my polyester curtain over top. Then I began to place some ice blocks on top of the wood and the curtain, just along running down. I bought a bag of ice, so some of the chunks are bigger than others, but it really doesn't matter. So I just wanted to make sure there were no gaps and there was ice fully covering the whole piece of wood on top of the curtain. Then I began to dump out my powdered dye over top of the ice. I tried to do this as evenly as possible, making sure that all the ice was covered with powdered dye. I used all the colors in the kit and spread them out across the entire plank of wood. Now the easy part is just to sit back and let the sun melt the ice and see what kind of colored patterns come out. So where I am right now, I'm in Canada, and it was actually 33 degrees Celsius this day, so the ice was melting at a pretty rapid rate. But upon standing back and watching it, I saw that I did have some large spots of dye just kind of clumping and sitting in one area. So I did add a bit more ice around, and I did actually also pour some water over the ice to kind of allow those clumpy parts to drip down so that I wouldn't get big blocks of color. When I started watching it, I had my piece of wood tilted. I thought it would create a cool design, but I decided that I really actually didn't like the way the colors were kind of floating down towards one end of the curtain. So I did decide to level it out halfway through just by lowering the wood down on a different rung on my ladder, making it more even to allow the color to evenly displace down my curtain. Once the ice is completely melted, you just take your curtain off your piece of wood and then just place it in the dryer till it's dry. This is a polyester curtain that I'm using here. Upon doing the project, if I had to do it again, I would probably use a 100% cotton curtain. I believe that the colors would absorb a lot better because as the sun melted the ice, it also kind of changed the color of the dye. So the salmon color and the butterscotch that were in the kit actually kind of faded out with the sun, and I was just left with the blue. But honestly, I think it's actually really light and delicate, and I think it's a perfect fit for this window. So I now have these super ice blue kind of ombre dyed curtains, and I think they turned out really well considering this was a very cheap, inexpensive DIY to do. The dye kit only cost me $8 and the curtain was $4 from my local dollar store. Then just add a bag of ice and that's all you need for this project. I hope that this encourages you to get creative with ice dye and see what kind of colors and patterns that you can come up with. Thanks so much for tuning into Hometalk, and we'll see you on another video.
Start by breaking apart some pillar wax and add it to a pan to melt. Next, grab some crayons and choose colors. Take off the paper and add them to the wax. After that, melt the mixture. A double boiler is ideal, but if you don't have one, you can use a baking tin or metal bowl on top of a pot with water. Melt all sorts of color combinations. Then grab a recycled carton and unfold it. Cut 2 slits on either side of the top. Next, grab some candle wicks. Wrap the wick around a straw or chopstick to keep it in place. Then grab some ice. Begin adding ice to the carton mold. Then pour the wax over the ice and allow it to cool. Repeat this process in all different colors. After they have cooled, grab a towel and carefully cut and rip away the carton. You can also add cooking spray before you pour in the wax to make it a little easier to remove. Now you have these fun, custom-colored ice candles for practically free. Use them together for a fun party centerpiece or separate to add a pop of color all around your home. You can also add a drop of citronella to the candles to make them bug repellent for your backyard parties. What colors would you do? Let us know in the comments. Want to make this project? Here's what you'll need: a recycled container, some ice, filler wax, a box of crayons, a double boiler or pot and baking pan, a spoon, candle wicks, scissors, and a straw or chopstick. I hope this inspires you to use common household objects to bring a pop of color to somewhere in your home. Thanks for watching Home Talk. See you in our next video.